Well, boys, I've had the little Series S sitting in my entertainment center for 6.5 months now, and my opinion has greatly changed on it. Some things remain the same. I do think it is a tremendous value at $300. However, as a primary console, if this is your only console for the 9th generation, I would watch the video. Especially with more modern next-gen experiences coming out for the Xbox Series. I played the medium recently and was unpleasantly surprised as I watched my corneas pop as the level of detail was non-existent and there was texture popping all over the place and the draw distance was non-existent and the reflections looked like my Wii. All right, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but if you guys are in the market for a new gen console or you're considering picking up a Series S as a secondary console, travel console, or etc., you might want to stick around because I have some thoughts that could help you out. Let's get it. Alrighty, boys, share my screen over here. I have a comparison page pulled up on the Xbox website between the Series X and Series S, and I think since there is a $200 difference and this is produced by the same manufacturer, Microsoft, this is a good place to start this video. I want to keep this as organized as possible, so I'm not bouncing around repeating myself or missing key points or anything like that. I do have some notes pulled up on my second monitor up here, and without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So first of all, for $200 cheaper, you are sharing a ton of features with the Series X, which is awesome, such as the Velocity architecture. Okay, it has the same exact operating system, literally the same exact software suite as the Xbox Series X. Quick resume, yes, and it is a fantastic feature. You can have up to 3 games in queue, where basically you go back to the main menu, launch another game. PlayStation 5, the $500 PS5, does not have this feature. They have something called Switcher, but that doesn't work like this at all. It actually launches a game from the start menu of that game. This will resume you within about 6 to 8 seconds into the exact part of that game that you were in. You can pause mid-race in Forza and then pick up mid-fight in Call of Duty or something, and it'll swap you like that. Now, a lot of that comes down to the fact that the Xbox Series X and S do have the same SSD. Whoa, take it easy, not size-wise now. The Series X has a 1TB SSD, which gives you indeed about 850 gigabytes of usable storage, and the Series S has 512 gigabytes, which gives you 364 gigabytes of usable space, which is something we'll touch on in a little bit. That is not a lot for a new generation console when games are easily over 100 gigs. DirectX ray tracing. Yes, the $300 4 teraflop of graphical performance Series S does support ray tracing. Does it look as pretty as the Series X or the PlayStation 5? No, and there are noticeable reflection differences that I will touch on in a little bit, but it does do DirectX ray tracing. That is a thing. That is not a false statement. Variable rate shading. Yes, indeed. Spatial sound. That is the new audio engine on board the Series S and X, just like the PlayStation 5 sports the Tempest 3D audio engines. All of the new generation consoles are a step up in audio quality as well as visual quality from the previous 8th generation of consoles. Gaming up to 120 frames per second, and this is one of the biggest points right here in this entire video that I want to get across to people. Even though I am going to, at certain parts in this video, not batter, but basically explain the weaknesses of the Series S when it comes to textures and level of detail, draw distance, because, well, it has a third of the graphical performance as the Series X. But virtually every single game that you can hit 120 Hertz in on the Series X, you can also hit that in the Series S, which is $200 cheaper and easier to get a hold of right now. You can find Series S's, not on the shelves of your local store or anything, but if you are following somebody like Wario64 or Jake Randall on Twitter, you have a higher chance of getting a Series S locked in. I bought mine on Best Buy fairly easily, actually. Wario64 was like, hey, they have these here. I clicked the link, I ordered it online at Best Buy, and then did curbside pickup. That was 6.5, almost 7 months ago. I got this thing pretty close to launch. You can hit 120 frames per second on a console. That's never been done before. Even on the Xbox One X, which is the flagship of last generation, which I had one. It's a fantastic console. The highest I could hit was 60, and that wasn't even consistent. There were tons of frame rate drops where it would flutter down into the high 40s, low 50s, but that console was targeting 4K, and this is targeting 1440, which we'll cover in just a minute. Play thousands of games across 4 generations, so that is also one of the best things that Microsoft has going for them right now, especially against Sony, as everyone likes to make it a huge console war and whatnot. I'm not going to go too much in depth with what PlayStation has going good for it, but for Xbox, what they do have is a huge library of past games, especially if you own Xbox Game Pass. There is a lot of backward compatible titles. 94 of them are FPS boosted, which doubles the frame rate from the original of 30 to 60 or 60 to 120. And if that is on the Series X at 4K, that is on the Series S at 1440, which is pretty cool. By the way, neither of those are native. They are dynamically upscaled. Works with Xbox One gaming accessories. So that is also a perk of the Xbox, is that anything you had from the Xbox One works on the Series S and vice versa. You can use it on your Xbox One that's in the other room or something. Access to over 100 games with Game Pass. Yeah, Game Pass is fucking awesome. I've made plenty of videos on it. Now, storage and expandability, huge downside here. You have about 364 gigabytes of usable storage. A lot of modern games are about 100 gigs, especially if they have multiplayer, all the DLC and map packs and all that shit. And your option is right here, the 1 terabyte Seagate storage expandable card. Now, I will give it to Microsoft. At least they have expandable storage. Sony's been firmware blocked since launch. That was 6.5 months ago. So at least they have this, but it's $220. That is more than 2/3 the price of the Series S. You're going to need to get yourself an external hard drive. I will have one linked in the description below that isn't astronomically expensive. However, you will not be able to play brand new proprietary Series S and X games. You can put your Xbox One games on there, and you can store your Series S and X games. Like right now I have the Master Chief Collection, which is Series S optimized, on my external. But if I want to play it again, I'll transfer it over to my internal hard drive where it will support 120 frames per second at 1440, which looks pretty good. But yeah, the storage, that is a huge probably one of the biggest downsides of the Series S is she don't hold a lot of stuff in her. Frame rate. Yep, synonymous across the board, 120 frames. It's amazing. Now here is where the Series S falls on its tits a little bit. 4 teraflops of processing power. That is not a lot for 2021 by any means. Now, where this was made very apparent for me very recently was when I started playing The Medium, which is the latest first-party Microsoft Studio game that is a new-gen experience, if you will. Now, while that game does hold a steady frame rate of 60 frames per second, it is struggling to hit 1440. It is dynamically upscaling 1080p or even in some situations 720p up to 1440, and it becomes very evident when that happens because there is actual texture pop-in, visual texture pop-in, where you pan over your view, your camera in the game, and everything that was just out of focus or not being looked at, you literally see the textures pop in, and they look, pixelated and blurry, and then they'll pop in. It's pretty jarring and not really pretty to look at. But I mean, that is to be expected. Everyone knows getting into a Series S, it's a $300 console with 4 teraflops of power, or at least you should know that. Don't just go buy a console without doing research. For me, I made a video of my 4-month review a couple months back here, and I had no complaints about the graphics. In fact, I even boasted that it looked insanely good, which generally in most games it does, until I played The Medium, and I was like, holy shit. And then I played the same game, The Medium, on my friend's Series X, and I didn't have any of these texture pop-ins. The LOD, or level of detail, on all the environments was a lot crisper, and then also the draw distance when you're looking off on some of the vistas in large open areas. So Microsoft does a pretty good job working some black magic voodoo to make 4 teraflops actually look pretty decent and hold a steady frame rate, but things like textures, reflections, LOD or level of detail, draw distance, the settings that PC players have been tinkering with for years to fine-tune that perfect balance for their graphics card and their CPU of the frame rate that they want and the best looking graphics. That's what the Xbox is doing in the background here. So that is something to keep in mind. Gaming resolution, true 4K, my ass. I believe what they're trying to say by true, dynamically upscaled to 4K 120 or 4K 60 or whatever the game's trying to hit. Either running what's called checkerboarding or dynamically upscaling from something like 1440 to 4K on the Series X or 720 or 1080 to 1440 on the Series S. It is dynamically upscaled. Granted, it still looks really good, and it's very hard to differentiate the difference between native and upscaled. They look damn near the same, just like DLSS or deep learning super sampling on the NVIDIA graphics cards over here. They upscale a lower resolution, and you basically can't tell the difference. It looks damn near the same as the native resolution. Now, this is another huge factor here, guys. The only console you have in your house and you don't own a Blu-ray player for movies and whatnot, this probably isn't what you want to get, because this is discless. Just like I strongly recommend people don't get a discless PS5 if that is your only console, because, well, especially the PS5, considering the only place you can buy digital games is from the PSN, the PlayStation Network. It's been like that since 2018, November 2018. There's actually a class action lawsuit because they're overcharging people for what they can get for physical disc games and also digital game codes from like Amazon and Walmart and stuff. You should have that option, even if you are strictly a digital game player. What if a friend comes over and brings a disc version of a game? You just can't play it. What if your chick that you're trying to bang brings over a movie and you don't get laid that night because you don't have a Blu-ray player to watch anything? What if you realize, well, besides the fact that it's cool to have a collection on a bookshelf of like physical games because I can resell those when I don't want them anymore, as we're digitals, you can't resell them. But also, I can go to GameStop and get the same game for $17 because it came out 2 years ago, but they still want $40 for it on the Xbox store because digital games hold their value more, i.e. they stay expensive on these stores for longer. Those are the 3 reasons why I would not get a Series S as the only console in my house if I had nothing else, because lack of storage. By far the lowest storage of any console out right now, 364 gigs. No Blu-ray player. So if that is your only console and you don't have a Blu-ray player, then you can't do shit with that. Not to mention you can't play disc-based games. And then graphically, it is substantially less powerful than the Series X and PlayStation 5, like substantially. So video up to 8K. Now I have to explain this to people. This is most likely not going to be for gaming. This is going to be for video streaming. If Netflix ever goes from 4K to start supporting 8K, or if you can watch 8K videos on YouTube or something, you'll be able to watch it there. And if it is for games, it is going to be at the very end of the life cycle for the 9th generation home consoles, which is what we're on right now with the PlayStation 5 and Series. 8K in gaming would be at the very end of the life cycle, and it would most likely be no higher than 30 frames per second, and that would be struggling to hit that. So while it can do up to 8K, keep in mind, if that ever does get seen on these consoles, it won't be in games. Most likely it'll be in videos. Variable refresh rate, which means depending on the content that you're watching, like for example, I can watch 4K 60 video footage on my Series S. And when I'm browsing the menu, it's at 4K. And when I'm watching 4K videos, it's at 4K on my Series S. But when I launch a game, it knows, well, you're playing a game and it can't handle that graphically. It'll taper it back to that dynamically upscaled 1440. Dolby Vision is Dolby's HDR high dynamic range, which I do have to say does look very, very good on the Series S and X and PlayStation 5. Dolby Vision makes a world of difference when it comes to those dark darks, those bright brights, those vibrant colors, working in integration with ray tracing with a lot of the lighting and reflection textures. So Dolby Vision, good stuff there. Both the consoles support the same audio suites of DTS 5.1 surround, Dolby Digital, Dolby Atmos, and Windows Sonic. Now, Windows Sonic is free inside of the user interface. It is baked into the operating system, but you do need to pay to unlock Dolby Digital and Dolby Atmos. And you can do that from inside settings and then audio. They do also have the exact same ports and connectivity. That is 3 USB 3.0 ports, an HDMI 2.1 out, which you want to make sure, I mean, I'm sure you guys know this, I'm preaching to the choir here, but use the HDMI cable that comes with your console, or if you lose that or your dog eats it, make sure you buy a high-speed HDMI 2.1 so you're taking full advantage of your new console. They do both have the same exact 802.11 dual band wireless, which my Series S greatly outperforms my PlayStation 5 disc version when it comes to Wi-Fi connection by like like more than double. So there's that. And they do also have gigabit Ethernet, which is pretty cool. They of course have Xbox wireless radio. That is how you are able to wirelessly link your controllers. It's not Bluetooth like PlayStation does. It's dedicated dual band Xbox wireless radio. Think of it like a dedicated 2.4 gigahertz connection on a PC when you plug in like a dongle for your headphones or your wireless controller or mouse or whatever. Digital only version. Live stream and record clips in 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. It's 1080p on the Series S, not 4K. Digital game saves and backups are safe in the cloud. That is only if you have either Game Pass or Xbox Live Gold. That doesn't just do that automatically. You have to have a subscription to that. Digital games travel with you. Now, travel, this keyword right here. I do think that is probably the best application for the Series S is a dedicated travel console. So you have maybe your PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X at your house, but you want a capable console that can play the same titles that you have in your Series X library and can hit the same frame rate of 120 or 60, but the graphics will look less pretty, you know, instead of upscaled 4K, it's upscaled 1440. The Series S is freakishly small, smaller than any of the last gen consoles, the generation before that. It is super tiny and really light at 4.25 pounds. So you throw this in a bag or something like that if you travel a lot for work, or you are a college student that spends time in a dorm and then goes back home and stuff, and you want to have this console with you at all times, it is a great travel console. Pre-install new digital games, play the moment they launch. That is a nice Microsoft feature that you can pre-install games before their release date. So they're already installed, and as soon as they become playable, you don't have to install them. And then they do also rock the exact same controller. It is white on the Series S and it is black on the Series X, but it is virtually the same exact controller, and it is almost identical to the Xbox One controller. And they do come with the same HDMI cable. And here's the price if you want to do that payment plan. You can get it for 25 bucks a month or 35 bucks a month here. But it does end up coming out to, I think, like $700 or $800 for the console. So obviously it's a payment plan. You're going to be paying more over time. So I know this video has been going on for quite some time. I've been jaw jacking and lip flapping over here, but I gotta say, my final verdict here is the Series S would make a good travel console, not a good primary console, because it's 2021. We're in the 9th generation of home consoles. When I say that, hopefully I'm not confusing you guys. That includes every home console ever. So the Nintendo SNES and Sega Genesis era, the Sega Dreamcast and N64 era, basically every home console generation. Or this would make a good console for an extra bedroom in your house, because all your progress and everything saves to the cloud. So you could literally have like a Windows 10 PC play in your office, then go in your living room where you have a Series X, then go in your bedroom where you have your Series S, where you can watch content on Netflix or YouTube before bed or play games there. And all of that works in conjunction with each other, which is pretty cool. But do I think it is a good only console for this console generation? And the answer to that would be a resounding no, I don't think it is. Now, keep in mind the values there. You cannot build a $300 PC that can run 1440, 120 frames per second. You would have to buy used components for the build, or you would have to do some kind of black magic trickery, especially considering that is with ray tracing on, and that is with ray tracing, that is with support for Dolby Vision HDR. Graphically, I mean, for the context of it being a $300 console with 4 teraflops, it does look really good. But when you compare it to things like the Series X and PlayStation 5, it is flaccid as fuck. People might only want to get one console. You might just want to save that $300 and throw that towards a Series X or a PlayStation 5. Now, if you do already have a Windows 10 PC, I would say skip getting a Series X or Series S and get a PS5, because PlayStation has a closed loop ecosystem where you can only play games on their consoles, as where Microsoft has the Game Pass ecosystem, meaning they're much more open. They have an open relationship. You can fuck on the Series S, you can bang on the Series X, you can tallywhack on your PC. As long as you have Game Pass, that's all they care about. That's how Microsoft is monetizing this console generation, is through Game Pass Ultimate subscriptions. PlayStation wants console sales, and also they did also say accessories too. So like the Pulse 3D headset, the DualSense controller, stuff like that. I feel like this video went on way longer than I wanted, and well, no, I don't apologize, because there's a lot of good content in here. And these are my thoughts, having owned the Series S for 6.5 months, and also owning a PlayStation 5 and a PC and a Wii and a Switch and all this other crap. If you have all these other consoles, the Series S, it makes a good travel console. If you can only get one home console, you want something most likely with a disc player and that has more storage and that feels like a new generation console. When you play games, you don't see textures popping in. You don't see blurry backgrounds because the draw distance is super janky. But the fact that it can hit 120, HDR upscaled 1440 is impressive for the price. So if you're getting this for like a child or something like that, or you are on a budget but you want lightning fast load times with the SSD, as it does have the same read and write speeds as the Series X, it's just the smaller capacity, that's who this is good for. If you're on an extreme budget, if you travel a lot, or you're getting this as like a secondary console to fit your needs for, you know, you're playing in different rooms and stuff like that. Oh boy. The fun thing is, this is almost 30 minutes of me talking, and now I have to edit this footage as well. And then optimize the YouTube video with, you know, the keywords, catchy title, good thumbnail. For the love of Moses parting the seas, if this video was beneficial for you, like the video. It is free and takes 3 seconds by smacking that thumb up button down there. That helps this video to be seen by more people that might be looking at buying a new console and might want an honest owner's perspective as to what they're getting into. So that will help them, but it also in turn helps me grow this channel. So it's literally like everyone wins. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover a lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as a lot of honest product reviews and tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing. I'll I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.